G'day folks, Damon from Nomad. I've got a really awesome little box of goodies here. I've got the new small Squidtrex. So these are coming in a 55, 65, 75 and 85 millimeter size. I want to talk you through the difference in the sizes, what they're all about, and I guess application of where to use these. So I'm going to start first with highlighting some of the differences between the various sizes and then give you some more information about where I'm using these, what situations they work best in, and give you a rundown on that. So to start with, we've got the 55 and the 65 size. Now, very similar in physical size, different in weight. We'll get more into that later. First thing to note here is that these two have got an extra toe point on the front, and they don't have the additional hook eyelet on the belly that we have on the larger sizes. Now, the two next sizes up, the 75 and the 85, as you'll see here, sorry, I get my fingers out of the way, but they do have the hook eyelet on the belly. And the reason that we did this is that obviously the smaller sizes, really they're obviously quite a small lure. You're really unlikely to need to add additional trebles or assists onto these smaller sizes. So we made a deliberate decision there on the two smaller sizes not to have that eyelet on the belly. The other thing just to note, and it applies to all the sizes of the Squidtrex, you can add hooks onto the belly on the sizes where we've got that eyelet, but it does slow down the sink rate. So we really wanted to keep these, I guess, pretty pure in terms of the sink rate. They're quite small. The application that you're using them in means that you probably don't need that eyelet on the belly. Now, the other cool thing about these small Squidtrex compared to the larger ones, I'm going to grab the bigger size here. This is the 85. All of these, as you'll see, have an additional eyelet on the nose. Now, this is different to all of the larger Squidtrex, and I think it's really cool because what we found in testing, and we tested a whole bunch of different toe point positions and what did it do to the lure and all that sort of stuff. What we found on this one was that when you're in shallow water, you can really use this. It's kind of like I guess somewhat like a mad scad, sort of a twitch bait. If you attach onto this front toe point, I'd be using it in shallow water, and it depends, what water depth is relevant for what size Squidtrex, but you can use it as a twitch bait essentially. So cast it out and you're essentially letting it sink down, give it a little twitch, flick with the rod tip, and it'll dart sideways and it gets a really erratic action. You'll notice on here that we deliberately position the toe point on the flat top surface on the Squidtrex, which actually makes it vibrate. So we put it on top there instead of putting it directly on the nose. And the reason for that is because it adds extra variation. It basically makes it more erratic. So when you twitch that, because it's on the top there, it'll dart out sideways. It'll look quite erratic. You don't have to put a lot of action into it. If we put the toe point directly on the nose, it would have just given you a very straight kind of a twitch and a retrieve when you flick the rod tip. So the whole idea of this is shallow water. I mean, when I say shallow, it's relevant to the size of the lure. So the 85 here, for example, I'd consider shallow for this if I was fishing in, maybe 6 to 10 feet of water, 2-3 meters, that sort of deal. I would probably consider using this front toe point because this is a moderately heavy, 21 grams. Really depends on the water depth as to where you're going to use that toe point. So key feature here is that they won't vibrate when you use that front toe point. The vibration all occurs off the central toe point just because of the shape of the lure. So that's a real key feature. Now, where are you using which size? I mean, a lot, people who've seen the range of Squidtrex have said, wow, that's a lot of different sizes there. I think, with the bigger sizes, we're now going to be up to 11 sizes in the Squidtrex range. And we looked at not putting as many sizes into this smaller range, but what it actually came down to was application where you're going to use these. So you look at these two, for example, and say, look, I've got a 55 and a 65, and you look at the physical appearance of that and think, well, they're not that different. I could probably get away with just one of these, but in real world use, you've got one, the 65 here is around 8.5 grams, and you've got the smaller one at around that sort of 4 gram mark. So really a quite significant weight difference. And that's the key reason that we've, implemented all these different sizes. So it's the same here again with the 75 and the 85. You're looking at around that 14 gram mark versus 21 grams for the 85. So quite a significant range of weights there, going from 4 grams up to 21 grams. I've found myself out in Moreton Bay using these quite a lot, or even down at Jumping Pin Flathead fishing. There's a variety of places that we've done a lot of testing on these, and you really do need all these different weights. So obviously if you're fishing quite shallow and for smaller species, brim, flatties, the 55 is fantastic. I've even caught small jewfish on the 55. What it comes down to for me is actually the weight of the lure for the situation that you're fishing in. So I'll look at these two, the 55 and the 65, as pretty interchangeable. Like, a brim's generally going to eat a 65 or a 55. It just comes down to the depth of water that I'm fishing in, what application, whether I want to use the front toe point, how quick do I want it to sink, all of those factors. So that's really the key, determining factor in which one of these smaller Squidtrexes you're going to use in a certain situation. Now, obviously, depends where you're fishing. There might be places for big black brim down south, someone wants to use an 85, but typically, this size is going to be more your, threadies, dewies, snapper, that sort of size lure. So we've really got everything covered now. Anything that eats a squid, inshore, in estuaries, rivers, bays, the smaller 55 up to the 85 has that range covered. Also of note, we've tailored different hook solutions on different lures here. As you can see, we've got slightly heavier gauge BKK hooks on the 85. The 75 has a different cord, so we've gone with different strength assist cord as well, and we've really matched the size of the hooks to the size of the lure. You can replace these if you need to with standard BKK assists, but they all come rigged out of the packet, ready to fish with, these are actually been custom made, and they're slightly different to the assists that you can buy off the shelf, but they're pretty close. You can interchange standard off the shelf assists for these. So great new range of sizes here, 55, 65, 75 and 85. Just have a think about what water depth you're using, what species you're chasing. Really keep in mind using that different attachment point at the front. If you're fishing in a little bit of shallower water, it's a really effective way to catch fish. But you can check them out. They'll be available in stores very soon.